It's been 25 years of uninterrupted democracy in the country, and President Bola Tinubu says no matter how complicated democracy may be, it is still the best form of governance. This was part of his Democracy Day address to Nigerians, as he promises to always listen to the people and never turn his back on them. Kumi reports.
2024 is a year of double celebrations for Nigerians. Firstly, the 29th of May marking 25 years of uninterrupted democracy, which is a significant milestone for the country. And secondly, the 12th of June, recently designated as the country's Democracy Day, dedicated to the widely accepted election outcome in the country's history, adjudged to be won by the late Moshood Abiola in 1993.
My fellow Nigerians.
In the traditional speech of President Bola Tinubu on this special day, he begins by recognizing the labors of those who fought for the country's democracy.
We lost great heroes and heroines along the way. And this struggle, the winner of June 12, 1993 presidential election, Chief MKO Abiola, the most significant symbol of our democratic struggle, his wife, Kudirat, General Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, and Pa Alfred Iwani, amongst others, sacrificed their very lives. They bravely surrendered their fortunes so that our nation might have a better one.
The president's emphasis on democracy as the best form of government comes on the heels of the push for parliamentary system of government by some federal lawmakers.
That we have experienced peaceful transitions of government affirms our democratic temperament. As Nigerians, we must remind ourselves that no matter how complicated democracy may be, it is the best form of governance in the long run. We must also be aware that there are those among us who will try to exploit current challenges to undermine, if not destroy, this democracy for which so much has already been given.
The economic difficulties facing the nation has negatively affected the standard of living of Nigerians. The president acknowledges this with reference to the minimum wage negotiations with the labor unions.
As we continue to reform the economy, I shall always listen to the people and will never turn my back on you. In this spirit, we have negotiated in good faith and with open arms with organized labor on a new national minimum wage. We shall soon send our executive bill to the National Assembly to enshrine what has been agreed upon as part of our law for the next 5 years or less. In the face of labor's call for national strike, we did not seek to oppress or crack down on the workers as a dictatorial government of the past would have done. We chose the path of cooperation over conflict.
President Bola Tinubu is optimistic that in the end, national greatness will not be achieved by traveling the easy road, but through the right one, and appeals for togetherness in the fight to keep the fire of democracy burning and moving the country forward. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Shortly after the president's broadcast, the Nigeria Labour Congress, the NLC, faltered the president's comment that he will soon send the agreed national minimum wage to the National Assembly for passage. A statement by the acting president of the NLC, Mr. Adewale Adeyanju, rejected President Bola Tinubu's claims that an agreement has been reached on the new national minimum wage between the federal government and organized labor. Mr. Adeyanju stated that rather two figures, 250,000 naira from organized labor and 62,000 naira from the government and organized private sector, were arrived at and ought to have been submitted to the president. The statement reads in part, quote, "The Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, attentively listened to the Democracy Day presidential address delivered by His Excellency Senator Bola Tinubu, especially concerning the ongoing national minimum wage negotiations. While the president may have accurately recounted parts of our democratic journey's history, it is evident that he has been misinformed regarding the outcome of the wage negotiation process," end quote. The Labour leader is appealing to President Bola Tinubu, on whose table the recommendations rest, to live up to his promise and give Nigerian workers a living wage. Well, it's not just the NLC that has a reaction to the president's broadcast. Human rights lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Ebonolu Adegboruwa, has described the president's speech as a disappointment. He says the speech also falls short of spelling out a roadmap for the achievement of true democracy. Mr. Adegboruwa, who was speaking on our breakfast show, The Morning Brief, says he was looking forward to specific actions in the president's speech, like the release of wrongfully detained persons.
The election that brought the current president into office was nothing to write home about. An election that I've held since he assumed office have gotten worse. I expected on a day like this, all Nigerians who are being held in custody wrongfully should be released. I expected on a day like this, if indeed we say it's a day to commemorate democracy in Nigeria, we should talk about engaging the constituent units of this nation to find out whether indeed we are running a true federation. What are people agitating for? Why is there continual issues of banditry? Why is IPOB agitating? Why is there crisis in the Southwest? I thought that occasions like this will give us a roadmap of steps to be taken to achieve true democracy. What are we doing to amend the Constitution? When are we going to really start the journey of true federation, restructuring? When are we going to get to a stage when the judiciary will become the bastion of our democratic experience? So I'm sorry, I'm not impressed in any way at all by the speech of the president, in the sense that it is just rehashing history.
As part of the programs to commemorate Democracy Day, President Bola Tinubu also attended a parade by members of the armed forces at the Eagle Square. However, the president slipped while boarding the presidential parade vehicle at the venue and quickly got up and continued with the program. Apart from the incident, the program went on smoothly with a display of color and martial music. Our State House correspondent, Larry Lasisi, reports.
In our midst this moment.
It was a day of color as Nigerians gathered at the Eagle Square in Abuja for the Democracy Day celebration parade. Those in attendance include the leadership of the National Assembly, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, cabinet members, military chiefs, and students. Standing ready were the troops for the parade.
In absolute deference to his exalted offices.
And once the president arrived, he proceeds to inspect the guards. However, he tripped and was immediately lifted by his aides, and then continued with the inspection.
A brief look of his resume of His Excellency Mr. President. Next will be the resume of the ADC to His Excellency Mr. President. Now, the microphone switches over to my co-announcer, Captain Godfrey Anebia. Captain Abakwa, please. Thank you.
It was then time for the march past, led by members of the Armed Forces of Nigeria and other security agencies. Followed by the cultural troops display, showcasing Nigeria's cultural diversity. A portrait of the president was also unveiled, which is said to be the world's largest painting portrait on canvas. The president then signs a Democracy Day register.
One is to salute the dignitary. Traditionally in the military,
some of the people that attended the event speak on Nigeria's democratic journey.
Nigerians should learn that to build this country requires a lot of sacrifices. People had sacrificed for this entity called Nigeria, even in the name of advancing democracy.
We are an emerging democracy, and we are on a learning curve. And we have democracies that are over 900 years. India, we're just 25 years in this present one, and we'll keep learning. But the fact is that democracy is the best form of government for any people.
Like the new national anthem says, a country of equality. But most importantly, we should find a way to make sure the dividends of democracy is being, felt or given to the people, to the citizens. That's the most important thing, and that's the beauty of democracy.
As this event marks 25 years of enduring democracy in Nigeria, it also marks the beginning of a journey into the future as Nigeria strives to build on what it has in the past and make it better. From the Eagle Square, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has been reacting to the trending video of him tripping at the Democracy Day celebration at the Eagle Square today, this morning, saying democracy is worth falling for. Well, the president, who joked about the incident, said that he had only paid homage to democracy in the Yoruba style. Now, according to him, while celebrating, he had just bowed for a democracy. And of course, the president had tripped while hopping on a Land Rover vehicle to inspect the parade at the democracy event held at the Eagle Square in Abuja. Meanwhile, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has been reacting to the slip by President Tinubu at the Eagle Square during the Democracy Day celebration. In a post on his X handle, Mr. Abubakar expressed his empathy while hoping that all is well with the president. The post reads, quote, "I sincerely sympathize with President Bola Tinubu over this unfortunate incident as he was set to review the parade on Democracy Day. I do hope that all is well with him," end quote. Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, in his reaction, said he was saddened to learn about the unfortunate incident and wished the president well. Reacting on his X handle, Mr. Obi said, quote, "I was saddened to learn of President Tinubu's unfortunate fall today. I wish him well. We achieved nothing by gloating about an accident that could well happen to any of us. We are all human beings, and while we profoundly disagree on how to move Nigeria forward, we must remember our common human frailty. Let us stay focused on the issues that will lead to a new Nigeria. And may this moment serve as a poignant reminder of our shared humanity and the need for compassion, empathy, and unity in our pursuit of a brighter future for a great nation." And the president's team were quick to also react to the incident. So the special advisor on information and strategy to President Bola Tinubu defended his principal's slip, saying the Nigerian leader is not a superman, but a human being like the rest of humanity. Reacting on his X handle, the presidential aide, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, wrote, quote, "President Tinubu is not a superman. He is human like all of us. President Biden has had several slips in the last 3 years. Even the younger Barack Obama slipped while president," end quote. He goes on to say, "Political leaders are human. Slipping should not detract from the import of Democracy Day celebration," end quote. In part two, after the break, Channels Television hosts a town hall on ways to address the country's security challenges in the nation's capital. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. I will never turn my back on you. That's President Bola Tinubu's message tonight.
Bread is an essential part, meaning that in life, if your inability to access what to eat is a major problem and dilemma for people. That's why the national bread can never be enough. It cannot be enough because the bread itself is not enough to share. But when you then have a system that is not a free market economy that allows for demand and supply to happen, that allows for value creation to take place freely without the intervention of somebody somewhere with a piece of paper and a pen, letting these people take a lion's share, of course, they will always get a shorter end of the stick.
Mrs. Titi Oshodi.
For the Special Advisor on Climate Change and Circular Economy to the Governor of Lagos State, business sustainability is critical in positioning citizens to play in a free market economy.
Between free democracy or free market and democracy is settled with the place of sustainability. I stand and I operate in an industry that is for sustainability, for sustenance, for longevity. So it's important that from our office, the 3 pillars by which we drive is produce and help you see, help you to navigate where there's opportunities for job, where there's opportunity for market, where there's opportunity to access to wealth as well.
And despite the country's huge endowment in human and natural resources, the chairman of the editorial board of This Day newspaper, Olusegun Adeniyi, believes much remains to be done in terms of the economy.
Most Nigerians have not been availed of their fair share. For all its human and material resources, Nigeria's GDP is still among the lowest in the world. Food inflation, which is currently about 40%, is not only frightening, but also brings the risk of social, economic, and security turbulence. So while periodic elections are good, if because of the choices we make, most of our citizens still find it difficult to put food on their table, there's a problem.
Beyond celebrating the freedom from military dictatorship, the various speakers here are of the consensus that a true democracy is one which delivers equity and justice for all and provides the enabling environment for the full expression of individual potential.
I told him, listen, Gigi.
Still ahead on the news at 10. Security chiefs and experts share their thoughts on Democracy Day at the Channels TV Security Summit and Town Hall in Abuja. Plus, economic think tank the National Derivatives Company projects Nigeria's inflation to hit 34.32% for the month of May. That will be on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back. And still from the platform, the governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, has preferred some solutions to aid the country's free market economy, which include the creation of working group across critical sectors and devolution and building foundations of a competitive and workable federation. His position, which was canvassed during the panel discussion at the platform, was also supported by the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, and former Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babatunde Fashola.
As often associated with the platform series, thought leaders had so much to say on this year's edition to mark Nigeria's Democracy Day. On the dashboard of issues to be discussed is the linkage between democracy and the free market economy. From the two-time governor and minister, Mr. Babatunde Fashola.
What economy are we even talking about in the Nigerian sense? So I go to the idea that our economy is predominantly small businesses, MSMEs. There's a data that shows that there are about 40 million of them. There's a national policy document that shows that they employ about 59.6 million people as of 2017 and account for 49%, almost 50% of Nigeria's GDP. That document, that data clearly shows that that is where the critical mass is.
To the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara.
For progress to be made, we must creatively create a reward system that works only for citizens who are bakers, not those that are hunters. By that I mean those rent seekers, masquerading as businessmen and women who now promiscuously litter our economic space. If Nigeria keeps holding on to what is normal, it will keep letting go of what is possible. We must never lose sight of the fact that scientists built the Titanic while amateurs built the Earth. But the Titanic couldn't survive a collision with an iceberg, while the Ark defied the global floods. The fight to rebuild our faltering economy is our collective fight.
To the current Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, all highlighted examples of Nigeria's political landscape and how it impacts the country's economic prosperity.
Literally every sector requires a declaration of an emergency. We need working groups on security, on economy, oil and gas and natural resources, food security, etc. But there are two others I will just, make a few statements about here that will shape the future. Number one of them is the devolution and building the foundations of a competitive and workable federation. And the second is a social contract with citizens to give everyone a stake in the future of Nigeria.
At the end of the session, participants called on immediate and collective actions that will help drive Nigeria's free market economy.
From the platform, this time Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese Matthew Kuka, in his submission, appealed to lawmakers to correct some of the anomalies in the Constitution, especially as it concerns the cost of governance and frivolous spending.
We must come back to the whole question of the National Assembly. How do we explain? We may not be in a dictatorship, but there has to be some legislation against certain levels of malfeasance that are not acceptable by any standards at all. The humongous amounts of, I remember our senator in Kaduna, Senator Shehu Usani, he said, okay, every month they are giving us 25 million. I have to take. Okay, I have to take because it's already there. To change any of this, you have to go back to the National Assembly. But what you're saying, former Speaker, can it not be, does it need legislation to say that nobody should, because they all these Land Cruisers, where they are produced, they are not buying them as much as, I think these people must be wondering what kind of human beings are in Nigeria. Isn't it possible to legislate what you are saying? Even if innocent motors cannot produce this number of motors, isn't it possible for Nigeria to decide that we are going to realign our pattern of consumption?
Nigeria's security chiefs and actors have been speaking on the challenges faced by the sector and ways at curbing them. While speaking on Channels Television Security Summit and Town Hall today in Abuja, Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa explains that the northern part of Nigeria is currently fighting an asymmetric warfare, and there is need for all to join hands in waging war against non-state actors.
We are dealing with asymmetric warfare, which is a new kind of warfare. It's different from the conventional term, and that's what we want to make very clear. Conventional warfare is between country to country. Now, asymmetric warfare, you are dealing with non-state actors, people you don't know, people that are your own. I give you some examples. Sometimes when we go on cordon and search operations, the same village you get in, they hide the weapons, touch them, they don't have anything, and you proceed. And they dig out these weapons and fire you from the rear. It is difficult because you don't even know who is your enemy. Everybody is an enemy. There is no front. Everywhere, and is a front as much as possible. Now, the challenges we're having is that understanding. I'm happy that it is changing. And if you see from what the armed forces and the police are doing now, we are being very people-centric in our approach. Because we understand that asymmetric warfare has to do with the people. It did not start now, it has started since. My advice always is no country should allow asymmetric warfare to commence. It is difficult to eradicate. Why? You are dealing with ideology. And once you have that ideology built in, it's difficult because you see the person, you don't know what he's thinking about. You don't know what is in his mind. We have seen people that we have told them they are still telling us that we are wrong and they are right, as it is. So we need to come together as a country to be able to tackle this, and it should be nipped in the bud for every country, I advise.
On the spot, the Deputy Inspector General of Police Research and Planning, Dasuki Galadanchi, adds that the challenges faced by the police is not just manpower, but the police lack capacity, logistics, and welfare.
You can see we are now recruiting and we are now replacing those people. Very soon there will be training of 10,000 policemen. It will be followed by additional 10,000 and then 10,000 again. The president has graciously approved 30,000. That will add value. Again, it's not even issue of number, it's issue of capacity. And the IG had already identified that, and he has given that order. There is 3 days training, 5 days training, 7 days training. As I told you, we identify our local problems, use local solution, we solve it. And that is exactly what we are doing. Issue of funding, issue of lack of manpower, all is, by the way, what is it that we are doing now with the manpower that we have? And that is exactly what I told you we are doing, and it's yielding result.
The Chairman House Committee on Defense, Honorable Babajimi Benson, says all is set for the passage of the State Police Bill. He adds that when the bill is passed, interested governors will have to apply for it.
The Parliament is also looking critically at the State Police Bill, State Police. Some say they want. There's also a conversation that if you don't want, don't apply. If your state needs state police, apply. So it's not by force. Any state that feels that its state is not well policed, if the density is low, they can apply. But they must meet some stringent conditions before the licenses are granted. The licenses would also come with caveats. It can be revoked, it can be suspended, it may not be renewed if the state uses it in on a lawful way or it abuses it.
And the governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawal, insists that if he is given full powers, he will end insecurity in the state in 2 weeks. Governor Lawal explains that the state is ready to end all forms of insecurity and banditry across the 14 local government areas.
We don't have control over the military, nor the police, or the civil defense. If we are really committed and we have the political will, all this issue of banditry, kidnapping, cattle rustling, and other form of insecurity, we can handle this within 2 weeks. And I mean it, and I still repeat it. If I have the power now, and if they're under my control, believe me, in 2 weeks, we'll be able to finish the issue of banditry and kidnapping in my state. There's no two way about it.
So let's join Will Ibong now for the very latest in the world of business. Will.
Thank you, Ayotunde, and welcome to Business News. Now, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company has forecast Nigeria's inflation to hit 34.32% in May from 33.69% in April, marking the 5th consecutive increase this year. This projection comes as the National Bureau of Statistics is scheduled to release May's inflation data this week. Food inflation is expected to rise to 41.2%, while core inflation will increase slightly to 27.2%, mainly due to currency pressures. This trend, combined with other factors like the proposed minimum wage review and increased money supply, shows that price inflation is unlikely to stabilize soon. The FDC says that the central bank may consider another rate hike at its July meeting to curb inflation. However, the World Bank, in its latest reports, states that the monetary policy tightening by the Central Bank of Nigeria may not reduce inflation as anticipated by analysts. The Nigeria Customs Service has intercepted over 150,000 liters of premium malted spirits, also known as petrol, with a market value of over 109.97 million naira at various locations across the country. The Controller General of Customs, Mr. Adewale Adeniyi, who visited the Adama Tarabat Command to assess the seizures, noticed there's been an alarming increase in smuggling of petroleum products from the country.
This is the latest success of the Nigeria Customs Service in its efforts to tackle smuggling, especially at the country's borders, through Operation Whirlwind. The Controller General of Customs, Bashir Adeniyi, has come to the Adamawa Taraba Command to get first-hand updates on the officer's activities.
Welcome address. No one is more competent to welcome us than
This is the latest interception in petrol. The Executive Director of Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority is also interested. The customs boss is particularly worried about the impact of smuggling petroleum products across Nigeria's borders on supply in Nigeria.
Our federal operations units and marine commands have intercepted a total of 129,185 liters of fuel valued at over 90 million, while petroleum motor spirit PMS is sold at an average of 700 naira in Nigeria. It is sold at an average of 1,672.05 in the Republic of Benin and 2,061 naira in neighboring Cameroon.
For the NMDPRA, preventive measures have been infused into the system to prevent smuggling of petroleum products.
Any truck, any petroleum product that is found close to the border must be seized and enforced against. Secondly, the NMDPRA has continued to sustain the legacy directive that retail outlets within a prescribed radius of the border will not be licensed. And so, any retail outlet found very close to the border retailing petroleum products must be sealed and enforced against.
The NMDPRA says it is working with not just the customs but other security agents to ensure full implementation of its guidelines.
And with that, we wrap up business. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Thank you, Will. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has told Hamas that it is time for the haggling to stop after its leaders proposed numerous changes to a plan for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. He told reporters in Doha that some of the changes were workable and others were not, but that the U.S. and mediators Qatar and Egypt will try to close this deal. Here's Simon Puza with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Qatar to push for an agreement on a Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal, which currently hangs in the balance.
Well, first let me just say it's very good to be back.
Mr. Blinken was said to have been up late into the night assessing the text handed by Hamas to mediators Qatar and Egypt. The Palestinian armed group said it was ready to deal positively with the process, but stressed the need for Israel to agree to a permanent ceasefire. Israel's government has not commented, but an anonymous Israeli official said Hamas's response amounted to a rejection.
In the days ahead, we are going to continue to push on an urgent basis with our partners, with Qatar, with Egypt, to try to close this deal. Because we know it's in the interests of Israelis, Palestinians, the region, indeed, the entire world.
Meanwhile, Israel and Hamas have been accused of committing a litany of war crimes and human rights abuses since the 7th of October in a new independent report to the UN Human Rights Council. The damning accusations, compiled by investigators from the UN's Commission of Inquiry, accused both sides of war crimes and mounting attacks against civilian populations and murder or willful killings. The report, which covers the period up to the end of 2023, specifically accused Israel of crimes against humanity for torture, extermination and gender persecution targeting Palestinian men and boys. French President Emmanuel Macron has defended his shock decision to dissolve parliament and call elections, urging French voters to come together and say no to extremes. 3 days after his bombshell announcement in response to the far-right National Rally's dramatic victory in European elections, Mr. Macron denied he wanted to hand them the keys to power. He said calling elections was the only Republican option. He said that a broad range of political groups who cannot identify with this extremist fervour should unite against it. Kuwait's Deputy Prime Minister says at least 41 people have been killed in a fire at a residential building in the city of Mangaff. Videos shared on social media showed flames engulfing the lower part of the building and thick black smoke billowing from the upper floors. Officials said at least another 15 people were injured and taken to hospital. A new government has been formed in Haiti as it tries to restore order in the nation. The new cabinet completely replaces all the ministers from the government of the former Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who was forced to step down earlier this year by gangs which control large parts of Haiti. The announcement of the new cabinet comes 2 weeks after the country's Transitional Government Council appointed Gary Conil as interim Prime Minister. Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has said all profits from the sale of oil and gas will be well managed as the West African state started producing oil for the first time. Australian energy giant Woodside described the extraction as a historic day and a key milestone for the company and the nation. The Sangomar Deep Water project, which also has gas, aims to produce 100,000 barrels of oil per day. It is expected to generate billions of dollars for Senegal and boost its economy. One of France's best-loved singer-songwriters, Françoise Hardy, has died at the age of 80. Hardy burst onto the music scene in 1962 and became a cultural icon who inspired the likes of Mick Jagger and Bob Dylan. Known for her melancholy ballads, she symbolized France's yeah-yeah pop movement, so called because of its nod to English music. Her most famous songs included All the Girls and Boys and My Friend and Rose. And a plane's windscreen and nose have been badly damaged from hail after a flight from Mallorca to Vienna. It happened as flight OS 434 flew through a thunderstorm cell that Austrian Airlines said was not visible on radar. It said the jet made a mayday call on its way back from the Spanish island, but landed safely in Vienna with no injuries. Images on social media showed the nose of the Airbus A320 partially disintegrated. Austrian Airlines said it was assessing the damage and stressed that passenger and crew safety was its top priority. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. The Spanish Tennis Federation has confirmed that recently crowned French Open champion Carlos Alcaraz will team up with 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal in the men's doubles tournament at the 2024 Olympic Games. The two players had previously signaled their desire to line up alongside one another, although there had been no confirmation that would be the case until team captain David Ferrer's official announcement today. Alcaraz and Nadal will compete in both the men's singles and men's doubles. Former world number 1 Naomi Osaka blasted her way into the quarterfinals of the St. Tuggenbo's grass court tournament with a rapid-fire straight-set victory as she tunes up for Wimbledon. The 4-time Grand Slam winner dispatched home favorite Susan Lamins 6-2, 6-2 in less than an hour. A powerful service and ground strokes proving too much for the Dutch woman. The Japanese star, now ranked 125th in the world, will face Canada's Bianca Andreescu. UEFA has confirmed that fans at Euro 2024 will be given more detailed information on video-assisted refereeing decisions than before. The head of UEFA's refereeing committee, Roberto Rossetti, said screens at stadiums across Germany will provide technical explanations of VAR calls in order to improve spectators' understanding. One of the various criticisms of VAR technology since its widespread introduction has been the difficulty match-going fans have in understanding why certain decisions are made. Italian giant Juventus have named Thiago Motta as their new coach, replacing Massimiliano Allegri, who was sacked last month. The 41-year-old has signed a 3-year deal with Juventus. Motta was previously in charge of Serie A rivals Bologna. The Italian-Brazilian made his coaching name at Bologna, which he joined in 2022. That's it on sports. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Chris. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu today assured Nigerians that he will always listen to them no matter the situation, just as he described Democracy Day as the best form of government. The president was speaking during a nationwide broadcast to mark the country's 25 years of uninterrupted democratic rule. The Nigeria Labour Congress today faltered the president's comment that he will soon send the agreed minimum wage to the National Assembly for passage. The Labour says no agreement has been reached on the new minimum wage. Also today, the 36th edition of the platform took place in Lagos.